preparing to live stream the meeting. Just in case. Hey, I think I pulled it off. Okay, now the problem is there's feedback or a delay. Can you hear me, Brad?
I can hear you perfect. Doesn't hear, I heard it for a second, but it went away.
Hey, I think I pulled it off.
Oh, now I heard it.
There's feedback or a delay. Can you hear me, Brad?
I can hear you, but yeah, there's a feedback or delay. Doesn't hear, I heard it for a second, but it went away. Oh, now I heard it.
There's feedback or a delay. Can you hear me, Brad?
I can hear you. There's a feedback or delay. Doesn't hear, I heard it for a second, but it went away. Oh, now I heard it.
It's not working.
You know what? If you're doing it on Facebook and YouTube at the same time, I think there's a delay. So you might have to choose one or the other.
It's only doing it on YouTube, but it was this huge delay reverb problem.
Yeah. Well, I can hear you now perfectly.
I know, because I turned it off.
Oh.
All
Says
right.
we're still on YouTube though, recording.
Interesting. Okay, hi everybody. The way we'll get to know is if we see people come in live. So this is Patricia Cori. This is the wonderful Brad Olsen. We are 5 minutes ahead of schedule because we're testing Zoom live. Yeah, it does say YouTube. Hope springs eternal in the human breast. So if there's anybody out there listening, please give us a sign. And in the worst case scenario, Brad would just, I think we're on YouTube.
Okay.
I don't know how to test it. Okay, you're right. It says YouTube and the YouTube is flashing. So don't you think it means we're on YouTube?
I think so. And it says recording.
You've got a recording signal?
I do. Yep. Upper panel, if you scroll to the top bar, it says recording and showing the Wi-Fi signal.
Is a chat, so I can't see if there are people listening. Let's see what. I think we'll just go for it, okay? Because we've got the potential that we're live and we have the definite that we're recording, so we can't lose. Yeah?
Sure.
All right, so we're just a few minutes ahead of time, but I'm going to get started. By the way, before I get started, just to give more people time, okay. You have been a globe-trotting man. Every time I look, you're with Laura or some person.
Yeah, we just went on a great conference last weekend to the new Living Expo in San Rafael.
Yeah. It was, I think that Sasha Stone was there, right?
He was, yep.
Cool. Wish I could be with you guys. All right, here we go. Hi, everybody. This is Patricia Cori, Beyond the Matrix, coming to you. You know, I haven't been around much, and I'm gearing back up. I was just talking about this recently, how we tend to, at the moment, some people, a lot of people are tending to avoid life, avoid the world because it's so intense. And I got into painting and the artwork, and suddenly I found myself retreating quite a lot. But I am back in full gear and happy to be back. And, you know, what a wonderful thing to have as one of my first guests, the wonderful Brad Olsen. He's been on my show several times. I really respect this man. He is the real deal. Brad is a truly scintillating author and speaker. And I have to say, in Cori language, he's a record keeper. I mean, the man, you know, this is his compendium of books, the series, the Esoteric Series, Modern Esoteric, Future Esoteric, and now he says he's re-released or newly released, a second edition of Beyond Esoteric. These are encyclopedias of everything you ever dreamed of knowing, of all things multidimensional, controversial, conspiratorial, etc. So I've always been amazed at what he brings forward, and really delighting in the opportunities that I have to speak with him and to bring forward our conversations for all of you. So he's an award-winning author, a book publisher, a conference speaker. I was just saying to him, where haven't you been lately speaking in conferences? He was just at what was it called, Brad?
New Living Expo.
Living Expo with Laura Eisenhower and Sasha, to name a few. He is a regular. He does presentations to audiences at Contact in the Desert, Journey to Truth, Alien Event, Conscious Life. It goes on the list. And always, a really, I guess I'm stroking you just a little too much here, Brad. A wonderful person. He's traveled he's an explorer like me. I mean, I haven't been to all 7 continents he has, but the search, I always say that it's the seeking that's by far more powerful than the finding. And I think Brad would probably agree with that. It's the seeking, it's that drive, that passion that drives you forward in life. And I admire and love that about him. And how many people can talk about having gone to Antarctica by sailboat? Oh, that is intense. Maybe we'll get another little. I've talked with him about Antarctica before, but perhaps we'll get to bring that into our conversation today, where we're going to focus on galactic happenings with particular focus on the sun. I don't know if you've read any of my books, Brad, but my information from 1997, the first book, talked about is a deity, and the Egyptians had it right, and so did so many other civilizations, and that it is the sun at the time, let's see, that's 30 years ago, talked about how the sun is preparing to progress into its 4-dimensional context, losing physicality and moving into a higher framework. And this is what I think is happening right now as we go into the 4th dimension and all this timeless experience, timelessness. And it was all in my books then, and here it is unfolding. So anyway, let's start with some conversation about your perception of the essence of the sun, because we see that it's anomaly time. It is throwing off the flares. We anticipated these flares. I think you and I talked about it last year. Everybody was waiting for the solar flares, and I was like, I'm sure that's a good thing. But here they are, and we see things. We won't even talk about the chaos on our planet because it's hard to discern what's galactic, what is man-induced or alien-induced. But we see alterations in our magnetosphere. I'm particularly concerned about that. And I'm concerned about CERN and its interference in all of this. So let me start, now that I've rambled, with the question, the leading question. What is your understanding of what the sun really is, the essence of the sun? Is it matter? Is it a conscious unit? Is it a deity? Talk to me.
I think it's a mix between real solid and plasma. It's probably more plasma than anything. And I find it interesting that a lot of UFOs have been seen coming and going from the sun. And for us thinking that the way to travel through space is using rocket ships, that would make no sense. They would burn up right when they get there. So obviously these craft have some kind of ability to deflect the heat or create a force field around their ship. But these are large ships too. In fact, that's what happened on 2012. Remember, everybody's anticipating something big to happen on December 21st, 2012. Actually, something did big happen, and that was a big mothership coming through the sun.
Is that the one that was plugged in with the tube, plugged into the energy of the sun?
Yeah, that's right. So the way they can study sun flares, and we'll talk about that for sure coming up here. But the way they study the sun is they'll put a disk over the sun so they can look at it, and then whatever flares are happening, they'll see shooting out from the sun. And then when a big ship like this comes through, it too is visible. So something actually did big happen on December 21st, 2012, that not a lot of people know about or talk about. And then the sun went quiet for quite a few years. Some of the lowest amount of solar flares ever recorded. And then just in this last year or so, started firing up again. But you got to understand that Earth is so small compared to the sun so big, and we're so far away that even if it looks like a solar flare is going to hit us, most times it won't, because it's really a needle in a haystack type of thing. But every once in a while they do hit us. And then you have in 1859, just in the years before the American Civil War, right in the beginning of the electric age, when the communication system was using telegraphs, just ones and zeros, a binary code to send a message over. There was the biggest solar flare ever recorded in history. It's called the Carrington event, and it was named after a British astronomer that noticed that the sun was having very high solar flare activities. And this was a direct shot. This was the needle in the haystack, and it disrupted all the telegraph lines. So I guess the point is, Patricia, that you can have solar flares quite regularly, but to have one hit Earth direct is kind of a rare occurrence. But when it does, and historically it has happened, it will render our electronic systems pretty much inert. That we would have these so-called 10 days of darkness until the satellites and all the cell phones and internet can come back online. So it is something to be mindful of, especially now that these solar flares are really acting up. That one of them hits Earth directly, and the whole planet could go dark.
But we've got, story, I mean, science of huge licks of plasma breaking away from the sun. And the
Oh
question
yeah.
is, does it necessarily have to hit the Earth as a flare to completely knock out? I mean, in other words, are there degrees of possibility besides the actual solar flare hitting the Earth, hitting into the magnetosphere? And let's talk about the magnetosphere for a minute. So you are aware that CERN was playing around with AI with their Astrea, what's it called? Astra, oh my God, Astrea AI computer, and they knocked out they affected the magnetosphere for a couple of nanoseconds. Did you
Hmm.
hear?
I know they're doing a lot of weird stuff at CERN. I didn't hear about that one, but
They
geez,
fired up.
what are they trying to do? Provoke the sun into a solar flare?
Well, that was something I wanted to discuss because
Yeah.
it's like, are you, aside from the question of who gives you the license to determine what happens with the magnetosphere of our planet,
Yeah.
they turned up this AI, and personally, I think they don't know what they're doing
Hmm.
because they turned it up and there was some sort of anomaly and they shut it right down. But there was they registered a few seconds where the
Hmm.
magnetosphere was affected. Hello. And, I can't help but wonder. I mean, I keep talking about CERN because for me, it's very dark. And we had all of the um, rituals, uh, completely dark energy. So it lends one to think: is this pure science, or is this a cult blended with maniac scientists who are messing with the galactic forces? It's very alarming. But anyway, back to the solar flares. Last year I think it was. I know that Sasha was talking a lot about solar flare. It was coming. It was going to be this great enlightenment moment, and I think you too were talking about that. And my question is, are we so sure it's going to be a revelatory moment of enlightenment and shift in the planet? What's your take on that?
Yeah, it's kind of a double-edged sword, Patricia. On one hand, it's similar to the Schumann resonance, this energy that's coming in from the center of the universe, and the position of our solar system now is coming around to a point where we're much closer to the center part, or at least there's There's less other galaxies in the way. So this cosmic energy, which is always coming into Earth, but now it's a lot more intense. And people who are familiar with the Schumann resonance can see it on a chart. And you
Yeah.
can even time it to a time of day when it's really interacting with the Earth. So some people say that they'll feel you can have headaches from it, but you can also feel inspired and more energetic or lethargic. I mean, it kind of depends on the person, but the solar flares, I suppose, would be the same way that they too would have an effect on all the living things on this planet. I mean, look, the sun is absolutely essential for all life on this planet. That we need it to absorb the vitamin D. We need it to give us warmth and light and the photosynthesis of all the plants. So it's absolutely essential that the sun is going to behave. But
Yeah,
once in a while, it'll have this hiccup. Yeah.
we allow it to, because you and I talked about recently, we talked about uh, Mr. Gates' new project, which I'd like to talk about today,
Yeah.
aside from engineering of the
Blocking
planet.
out the sun. Right.
Yeah, it's called Scopex. There's that X again. Lately everything's the weird has the X on it, and it's just I'm not
Yeah.
saying Musk is involved with Bill, but it does Scopex. I just made a note that there's an X there, kind of a theme. But at any rate, I'm seeing the proliferation of chemtrails, aerosol spraying like I've never seen before. People have actually, here where I am, as I was telling you, I moved here, there were none. It was just the
Hmm.
most blue skies to send out all these photos. This utopic sky like we used to draw when we were kids. White puffy clouds, all blue sky, green grass. And last couple of years, they started with the trails, and now it's daily. And I've got rain here almost 7 months. In fact, as
Wow.
we speak, there's a little sun. I'm like, what? So when you talk about if the sun, as long as the sun is operating, it's like, well, as long as we let it, because for some very dark and confusing reason, well, I don't think you and I are confused. There are beings, powers that be, that intend that they block the sun out.
Hmm.
So between the geoengineering and then, for those of you who don't know, this newest genius idea from Gates, it's called the Stratospheric Controlled Perturbation Experiment, SCOPEX. He launched it with Harvard scientists. The plan, which is being put into action, is his genius. I mean, the guy is, absolutely maniacal mind. The plan is to spray supposedly non-toxic calcium carbonate dust into the upper atmosphere, 12 miles high. And it's a substance that's theoretically reflects the sun back to the sun. I remember when they were talking about putting glass shards. That was another genius one. I don't know if you remember that. Or mirror shards, excuse me, mirror shards. It's like,
Yeah.
and how do you have them facing that
All right.
direction? Or, but at any rate, this is happening. Can you speak to it a bit?
Yeah, it's been happening since the 1990s. And people were in complete denial that our skies were being sprayed. And they were. I mean, remember when we were kids, Patricia? I'd look up at the sky laying in the grass and you'd just see a contrail and it would just disappear within 2 or 3 minutes. They would not linger in the sky for hours. They would not combine with other chemtrails and create a milky white cloud cover. And then they get hit by the HARP arrays and they turn into the ripple effect. And that's when they start steering this stuff around. It's all for weather manipulation. And I'm very proud of the state of Florida for not only
Yes.
banning fluoride from the water, way to go, only the second state after Utah to do that, but also on the short list of states that are banning geoengineering in the state. And they suffer the most because hurricanes can be steered. There are
Oh,
patents for this.
yes.
And there was a Walt Disney production in the 1950s that showed the weather manipulators of tomorrow. It was kind of like a Tomorrowland film. And it would show that in the scientists of the future will be able to steer hurricanes. And so Florida will never be hit by another killer hurricane again. Well, what's happened? They've only gotten worse. They've only gotten more intense. So they've had this technology for decades. Unfortunately, it's now being used against the people. And DeSantis, the governor of Florida, has said enough's enough. We're banning it. In fact, we're making it a felony if you get caught flying one of these chemtrail planes. So I hope this all plays out, and other states, like where I'm at, Nevada, on the border of California, I see them all the time. Um, they take notice and ban them as well.
But Brad, I was in Tibet in 1996 twice. And both times I saw chemtrails over Tibet.
That's China.
Seriously? Over Tibet? I mean, there's no population here. What is it they're trying to kill? What are they blocking? And, one question that nobody seems to be able to address is what kind of operation, bearing in mind, of course, that every year the Pentagon can't account for trillions of dollars. What kind of global operation is in place that would allow every freaking city on the planet to be covered in chemtrails every day? This is unfathomable, and people don't think about this, but there's not a place. I haven't been to any place except for here before where they're not a constant. I mean, I don't get those grid patterns here. There have been a
I
few.
think there are countries that do not spray. I have a map, a world map on my
Yeah.
conference presentation called Hidden Esoteric in Plain Sight. It's mostly Western Europe and the Five Eye countries, that being the UK, Canada, the US, Australia, New Zealand, are in red. They're the heavy spray zones. If you like, I could send you the image and you can put it up. But
Yes.
most African countries are in green. They never spray. And many are also in Southeast Asia that sometimes spray. And I would say, in my experience traveling there, I've never seen chemtrails in Laos or Cambodia or Thailand. I have
I
a yeah,
I
yeah,
just
I have a expat friend who moved there. He read my first book, World Stompers, and traveled there, and now he lives there. And I occasionally ask him, "You ever see any chemtrails in Cambodia?" Nope, never once. So there are countries that don't do it, and then other countries that do it real heavily, and then others that are kind of on the fringe that do it to move some weather systems around. Because remember, like in UAE and Dubai and Oman, these countries that very rarely get any kind of rain are having torrential downpours now. So they're saying, okay, steer it over to us. And then places that normally have it are going dry. So humans are playing God here, Patricia, and it's a very dangerous game to play.
but there's
And you've seen the weather just going crazy everywhere else.
to benefit civilization. However, it's a weapon.
Right. It's always to benefit something, but that's the story.
It's and we know that this was developed by the military. I mean, in fact, there's a paper that I posted in one of my books, the aerosol geoengineering aerosol plan. So when people say, "Oh, it's just a conspiracy theory," I'm going, read something, will you? I mean, this is
Yeah.
documented procedure. But the question remains: to what end? To what end? I don't think it's just about moving the weather around, because, for example, we have now in the southeast of the states perpetual destruction. Tornadoes, Tennessee, Kansas, nonstop. Hail the size of baseballs, right? Constant.
Mhm.
Texas is being bombarded. It's to what end? What do you understand to be the end goal of these maniacs?
Well, it's to control the weather. I mean, it really started as a military operation. That's why they were able to keep it top secret. But it's moved on to spraying us with certain particles. I believe that the Morgellons syndrome is mostly the vector to get it into humans and even animals, which are now showing signs
Oh
of
God.
getting Morgellon syndrome, have uh, shown that they're getting it somehow. Now could also find it in the food, but you can also find it in these spray samples. And one of these spray samples, well, there's a researcher named Sophia Smallstorm. She lives down in Southern California. I've been following her work for many years. And every time it was, well, the other thing is I'm a skier. I love to ski. I'm out here right near the Sierra Nevada mountains, and I watch the weather very constantly during ski season. Before a storm comes, heavy, heavy, heavy chemtrails. So they can turn the spigot on, they can turn the spigot off. Fortunately, the last couple of years, we've had really good ski season conditions. Thank you, climate geoengineers. But before that, it was a really bad drought. And so then they blamed all the trees dying on the drought. And then because the trees were stressed, these pine beetles got in and started killing the trees. Patricia, you go up and down the Sierra Nevada range, as well as the Cascade Range, all the way to Canada. Every tree is stressed. They're showing brown needles, parts of them are dying, or they're outright dead. Our forests are just kindling for the next massive wildfires, which are
Okay, well,
now so big they're crossing over the Sierra Nevada mountain ranges as they did 2 summers ago. First time ever in history that's ever happened. And so Sophia Smallstorm would see these chemtrails coming in, and she'd put out a dish of water because it would start raining often when they were doing it in the wintertime. And she would look at the samples and all kinds of stuff in there, from odd bacteria to these Morgellon fibers, and of course the usual aluminum, barium, strontium, these heavy metals. Dane Wigington, who's geoengineeringwatch.com, I've spoken on the phone with him. He does experiments. He does snow samples from the top of Mount Shasta in California, one of the tallest mountains here in the West Coast. And is aluminum in the snow. Now, how much more proof do you need that that's only coming down through the chemtrails than to find his and Sophia Smallstorm's experiments just testing the water and the snow and finding all these artifacts in there that do not belong in rainwater whatsoever. So
aluminum
there's
in snow.
obviously a different goal here. And one of
Very
them,
distressing.
yeah, big time. Remember the CIA director, John Brennan, about 10 years ago? He says, well, I really like this program called stratospheric aerosol injection, or SRI. And he goes on to say that it's going to block out the sun because we have this problem called climate change and global warming. So what we got to do is block out the sun. Are you kidding me? Block out the sun? That's the life giver of the planet. And by the
But
way, you're putting up all these solar panel fields everywhere. That needs the sun. So you're going to block out the sun, and we're told that we got to get on green energy and use these solar panels. Patricia, it just makes no damn sense. I think there's a covert agenda here. Yeah.
unless, let's go out on a limb here, as I do. Unless the agenda is to kill the planet by some
Well,
alien
yeah, there you go.
freak reptilians who want to take the. I mean, my opinion is that the agenda is this alien silicate based AI, can't even call it species, some kind of intelligence form that wants to mutate the planet into some sort of dead mineral place. They don't want humans on this planet and or
No.
life, biological life. It's very clear. I mean, Gates was actually talking about cutting down the forest and burying the trees. Why? Uh, no, something to do with the balance of carbon dioxide. I'm like, Bill, we need the trees to give off the oxygen. What is your idea? Kill everything. And if you really look at it, I mean, let's not get very depressing here, because it's an uplifting program. But if you really look at it, I mean, the poisoning of the food, the poisoning of soil, air, the manipulation of the ionosphere, the AI affecting the Schumann resonance, affecting the magnetosphere, for God's sakes, right? And now we've got Bill Gates sending up a balloon. Apparently in 2021, he sent up a test balloon in, where was it? Sweden. He sent it 20 kilometers high to test how to maneuver this powder loaded balloon and to see how it responds to command. So that was 4 years ago. Do you imagine they're already doing it? Because
Yeah.
the sun is dimmer and dimmer. I mean, it's in my experience, it's unbelievable to me. I'm not in England. In fact, they've got more sun in England because you need to know something. So you probably know, what am I telling? What am I saying? The Azores is called the cyclone, the Azorean cyclone, and it's where the cold northern weather comes up and hits the Gulf Stream. So we've had temperate weather here, and it affects duly the rest of Europe. But now that they're messing with the Gulf Stream and maneuvering all these chemtrails, we have nothing but rain here. We've had 7 months of rain, and
Get England's weather.
but at least England has that light drizzle kind of thing where you get beautiful flowers. We have these storms. At night I go to bed and it starts, and it's just howling wind, and just it sounds like somebody's throwing buckets of water on the roof. In fact, some nights I go, "It's going to come through the roof or what?"
Wow.
And yeah, no, it's 7 months of this. I'm really tired of it.
Yeah.
But to say from a higher consciousness perspective, I'm really looking at what point will they ever stop? What is the end game here? Because if they continue to do this, we're doomed.
Yeah, it's creating chaos too. It's
Yes.
upsetting the natural balance of nature. And out here in North America, you had these killer tornadoes that just touched down in outside of Denver. They're
Right.
getting close to the cities now. Yeah, yeah. It wiped out a bunch of homes there just a few days ago. In Chicago, where I grew up, just a few days ago, this huge plume of brown dust overcame the city.
No, it was like a
Like you would
movie.
see in the
Like a film.
Australian outback, right? During a big
Yeah.
windstorm. And it just came in and it just covered everything. And so you're just getting weird weather events as a result of geoengineering. Now, a lot of people are jumping on me and saying, you're a climate denier and you're this and that. And why are you bringing this up? Well, look, the evidence is there. They are definitely geoengineering. Okay, yeah, we're polluting the planet too. Sure, there are changes that are happening as a result of that, but you cannot have an honest discussion about climate change or the planet warming up or maybe even cooling off without discussing geoengineering. And this is a wide umbrella, okay? It's not just the chemtrails. It's also the HARP arrays. It's also the NexRad towers, which now you can see them on radar. They'll all flash across North America when they're steering these storms through. I mean, it's just humans playing God, and it's becoming very destructive. So I think now that states are starting to ban it, I'm hoping this is going to wake people up and realize that we've been sprayed like cockroaches since the mid 1990s.
Do you think we can recover from it? Were they to stop?
Yeah, but it would probably take many years, and it would probably require that all the countries of the world stop, and then we stop polluting too. But keep in mind, we never had to go onto this carbon pollution model, meaning
An
we did,
invention.
yeah, we did not need. Tesla had a car that ran off of his world system, so he was collecting energy. You know the Wardenclyffe Tower that he built in on Long Island, and it had the big Tesla coil on the top. That was not where the energy was coming from. That was the transmission device. He tapped the earth because he found that there's a pulsation that occurs within the earth, and he was able to entrain that pulsation and turn it into an energy current. I mean, it's brilliant and it's free energy and it comes from our planet.
They don't want
So,
free energy, right?
yeah.
Of course,
And so we never had to be polluting. That's the point. We never
way
had to go onto the internal combustion engine. In fact, they had electric cars in 1890, Patricia,
they don't care about that. It's all a
but they don't
mirage.
care.
Bottom line
Right.
is the control system, which is to get everybody hooked into the idea that they have to be hooked into electricity, which they can then turn off and on at will. And, which, for example, here I am in Portugal and Spain, we had the big blackout. I'm in the islands
Yeah.
with it.
Did it affect you guys?
No, didn't hit here. But I was thinking always the looking behind things, going, what do you do if you're in your Tesla and the electric goes out? Because
Right.
I saw a video of a guy once who he was trapped in his Tesla because something went wrong with the system and the car wouldn't turn on. And he was in the car with the windows rolled up and nothing would turn on. He couldn't unlock the door. He couldn't break the window because it was like ironclad windows. He almost died.
Hmm.
And I'm like, wow. Um, I had Mark Steele. I had the pleasure of meeting. Have you ever met Mark Steele in England?
No, I don't think so.
So he is the absolute wizard when it comes to electric cars and the
Hmm.
whole the whole system going down. And I was speaking at Carrie Cassidy's event there, so was he. So we went to dinner and I had the pleasure of being in the car with him for 40 minutes. This brain. And he was going, you see that? You see that? You see that? Pointing out all of the radar on all the lights. And he said, they're getting ready to be able to just turn everybody off in transit. They have the technology now all set up. They've got these smart highways. I don't even know how they work, but last time I was in England going from London to Glastonbury, I was just like, there's a tower every 3 minutes.
Hmm.
It's just unbelievable. And the question is, if you convince, well, first of all, if you own the weather, which they do, and then you own the electric system, and nobody can cook without electricity, nobody can drive without electricity, nobody can do any technology without it. What remains of freedom? My question to you, my man. What
Well,
remains?
that's the big question. And where is the justice in the world if we can't prosecute the people who clearly broke the law? Where's the Epstein client list? Okay, we saw the list of people who went there in summer. I just took a little vacation. But
Yeah,
where's
right.
the client list? Because that's when you indict these globalists. So they're still in charge. They're still fighting to do their Agenda 2030, which is also the whole climate scam is tied into how they want to lock everybody down in smart cities. And you say, well, how's that? Well, okay, they're pushing it on us super hard that humans have just screwed up this planet. You've driven your car too much, Patricia, not like you had much of a choice until recently. And it's all your fault. So therefore, we're going to have to limit your travel. So we're going to make a an app that you can only travel on certain days. You can only go so many miles because you just can't emit that much carbon anymore. I mean, even suppose if you had a Tesla car, you're still going to be tethered into this system. So they want to limit our travel. This is all in the next 5 years. They're going to implement this by 2030.
Just
Yeah,
having a law that you can't drive, they can simply turn you off. You turn your car off.
right. That's why they love the electric cars too, because they got a kill switch.
I
Or
have to I have to interrupt
yeah, well,
you.
we all
I'm smiling because I said to myself, I just know Brad and I are going to get off on a different because we think alike, which is very refreshing. But anyway, yeah, I just want to interject that even here on my little island, I mean, this is a remote little place. It's a backward place. Simple folk, 3 or 4 restaurants, two gas stations, right? I mean, we're not talking civilization, and yet they're turning it into a 15-minute city.
15-minute city. That's where we're going with this.
The bicycles now. I mean, the
Yep.
motor electric scooters. They're so clever. What did they do? The main road here. We don't have big roads. They broke down the road for 2, 3 years, and they put in this gigantic walkway. It's on the beachfront. And by doing that, they eliminated all the parking, and they made the driving congested beyond reality.
Yeah.
And this is to be able to go on with nature and walk on this ridiculous big walkway. And they pulled out all the gorgeous trees that were there for centuries and put in these Shotsky palm trees. All died,
Hmm.
right? But I'm like, oh, here we go. I've got the all of the makings now of a 15-minute city on this little island. Why? They're putting in control cameras. Why? Is it a test model? I mean, who the hell are you trying to control? We've only got 15,000 people on this island. What? What do you make of it?
Well, clearly, the 15-minute city is the end goal. They want to keep us all locked into a small area, stack them and pack them. They're building a 15-minute city outside of Scottsdale, Arizona right now, where all the apartment buildings do not have a space for a car. Everything, they're even designing these to be 15-minute cities, and everything is just walkable, or you can get on your bike. Hey, look, I love riding my bike. I rode my bike here to the library today to do this interview. I don't have a problem with that. But what I have a problem with is using this whole climate scam that it's all our fault, and therefore we need to be limited in our ability to move around freely and stack them and pack them in these 15-minute cities. So
And
the
control,
whole thing
forget,
is predicated, yeah, on climate change, and we got to combat it. Well, look, you can't have a honest discussion about what's going on with the weather and the climate unless you call in geoengineering. And since 1997, they passed a law. It's all legal, by the way, on a federal level in the US. And it says any test or experiment involving the use of chemical agent or biological agents, so they could spray us like rodents on a civilian population or human subjects is legal. And it goes
is
on to say that is legal. Yeah, I'm reading the law right here. It's chemtrail law, public law 105-85 November 18th, 1997. Use of human subjects for testing of chemical or biological agents.
you
So they
hear
can
this?
test on us any way they want.
You know, and they can spray any pharmaceutical they want on us too, which leads to the question of, are we going to all get aerosol mRNA? Is that coming up?
Right. That's coming next.
Because Bill has been talking about that, his new psychotic plan.
Right.
Well, we drifted away from the sun now, didn't we?
Well, we did drift away from the sun, but it's being blocked out. And isn't it interesting that throughout history, all the ancient cultures worshiped the sun? Aten, Amen. It was part of our early religion. And of course, we need it to absorb vitamin D. Now we've been told, well, you got to lather yourself up with sunblock because it's so dangerous, it's going to kill you. Yeah, I'm a sun worshiper. I love laying out in the sun and getting my vitamin D fix. But it just feels good, right? When you're out there and you're not burning, of course. If you stay out too long or your white skin, it can hurt. You can get sunburn. We've all had it. But if you start to build a regular tan, it just builds on more. So I'm out there, and a friend of mine, this is 10 years ago when I still used sunblock. He's like, I never use it. And he had a perfect tan, no peeling, no sunspots or nothing. I go, what? He goes, no, it's all a scam. There are chemicals in the sunblock that do more damage than what it would do, but you don't even need to block it. You can still have a normal tan without using it. So I've since never use it, never use sunblock, and I don't burn either.
You said something important, which was you said, I get in the sun, it just feels good. And it's like, if we follow the what really feels good in nature, we're on track, you know?
I
It's like
saw a
the
picture of old hospitals, Patricia, in the 19th century. And on the top floor of the hospitals, they would have solariums, a place
yeah,
where the patients would lay out to get sun because
yeah,
it's beneficial. It
right.
helps the body heal, and we need it. just like the animals need it, just like the plants and trees need it, just like
Exactly.
the oceans need it.
Just like the oceans needed for photosynthesis, which that's before we even get to the emotional aspect of our relationship with the sun. It brings us joy. I mean, this
Mm,
is every day looking at this gray. I can't describe it. It's not like chemtrail gauze per se, although we have days of that. It's just a cloud. I think that they're trailing above this cloud layer, and it's just rain.
mm,
And all of these beautiful colors of this island have turned pale. And this is happening everywhere in the world. They're killing our joy. I mean, they're taking away. Somebody told me recently, a teacher. She said that they've changed now the Crayola crayon box. In our youth, they were green and yellow and bright and primary colors. Now they're gray and brown and
uh,
shades of gray and blue gray, because kids can't relate to the bright colors anymore. Is that sad
mm.
or what? Either that or they're programming them not to, which is another discussion.
Wow, that's weird.
Very weird. Imagine that. I'll have to buy a box and see if that's for sure. All right, back to the sun. So some people have talked about the sun going through a polar shift, and I'd love to hear what you think about that. Does the sun have poles? And if so, is that a theory that you know anything about?
Yeah, I did look into that. I put some of that in my esoteric series of books. Pole shifts are more frequent on the Earth, or at least there's a lot more evidence for it. But the sun does appear to have its own poles. And although it's never been observed in the time that science has been able to study the sun, it would appear that the sun could also have a pole shift. And that's not a complete shift. It's usually more like about 30 degrees. And I show an image in my presentation of in my Antarctica talk that the magnetic poles are on the move right now. Usually they had been fairly stable in eastern Antarctica and also in the northern part of the Hudson Bay. But
Talk
right
about Earth.
now, yeah, it's moving across the Arctic Ocean towards Siberia and the North Polar region, and it's already off of the continent in the South Polar region. So this could precipitate a pole shift. And so what that would mean is that the new magnetic poles would correspond with the geographic pole. So the planet spins like a top, and that is exactly where the South Pole is, and the North Pole spinning on a top, rotating slightly every year. And if there was a pole shift, it would follow that magnetic pole and actually leave the continent of Antarctica and it's going towards Australia. Australia could be the next Antarctica. Similarly, if this pole shift were to continue 180 degrees away, it could also move the next pole in the north towards Siberia. So Moscow would be under a sheet of ice. And of course, we've had ice ages here on this continent before and after the last pole shift. So the last ice age, the Wisconsin glaciations, right where I grew up on the border of Illinois, that's the extent of where the ice had been. And all the Great Lakes are a result of the last ice age. That's just the glacier melt. And so there are periods of time when the planet cools, and then there are periods of time when it warms up. And the last one was the the what was it it's when it warmed up enough that the Vikings could take their ships across the North Atlantic, but before then it was the end of the Wisconsin glaciation, and it changes the flora and the fauna quite a bit. How can you have trees growing under a mile of ice, but when it retreats, then obviously there's something going on where where these giant glaciers will just melt. In fact, where I'm at here in northwestern Nevada during the last ice age, it was a giant freshwater lake called Lake Lahontan, for hundreds of miles in all directions in the middle of the state. It's all dried up. There are just a couple remnants of the lakes that are left, like Pyramid Lake and Walker Lake, which are the remnants of Lake Lahontan. And you can even see on the hillside the striation marks where the high level water might be. And incidentally, this is just slightly going off topic, but at those high level watermarks where there are caves, they've also found mummified humans and giants, like in the Lovelock Cave, or pretty close to me, the Spirit Cave right outside of Fallon, Nevada, the oldest mummified body in North America, 10,700 years old. And a mummified body is different than just skeletal remains. It is being prepared for burial, showing that there was a sophisticated knowledge of an afterlife and how to prepare a body for burial. And that was during the last ice age here, when there was a giant lake. And that's when sea levels were also much lower because a lot of the water of the planet was locked up in these glaciers. So the book I'm writing right now, which will be out at the end of the year, is called Secrets of Antarctica. And there is a part about the melting ice, but there's also a paradox in Antarctica, Patricia, and that is there are parts of Antarctica that are actually gaining ice. In fact, the news story of this season is there's more ice in Antarctica than there was last year. There are parts of the continent that are cooling. And I suppose that's why we don't see the catastrophic sea level rises. But again, that plays into the whole narrative of this climate change. That if we don't do something about this, that we're going to lose all our coastal cities. And so we've got to cut down our carbon intake. And it's just, we're just going back to square one here, Patricia, that it's all your fault and you've driven your car too much and there's too much carbon emission on the planet. But carbon helps plants grow.
Yeah.
And that's the big paradox here. We're actually helping the planet by burning this fossil fuel in some ways. I don't like the pollution aspect, but yeah.
No, the balance of this planetary being is perfection until the humans started to screw it
Right.
up. And
Just
you
like our immune system
exactly.
until this
So
thing started coming around.
my absolute unfavorite topic.
We can't talk about that on YouTube, though.
No, we can't unless we call it the Jabberwock. But I think that enough people now have awakened to what that is about.
Yes.
And but I've been following the story that Mr. Gates has this brilliant idea to aerosol it. So
Ugh.
now he said we want every single person on this planet to be vast.
Yeah.
And so do you suppose that this massive operation of, besides manipulating the weather, is for some reason to create another ice age for some purpose?
Another ice age or another melting of the glaciers. I think we're seeing extreme weather both ways. For example, we've had a very, very late winter here. We just had a winter storm a couple days ago in middle May out in northwestern Nevada. It snowed up in the Sierras when I was driving back from the new Living Expo. It was snowing on the passes. I was glad I didn't have to go get chains on the Mercedes because I didn't bring them along. But normally I'll drive my Forerunner, and the winters are much later to start. So really, ski season didn't really get going until January or even February when there was enough snow to have a decent base. So I can already tell you in my lifetime, just in the 2 decades I've lived out here, that the weather patterns have changed discernibly,
Same here.
and they're not as predictable as they were anymore.
That particularly changed in the last 2 years. I don't know about you, but because I've been watching chemtrails since 1997. Again, one of my first books, I presented the concept of chemtrails in that book, along with discussing HARP, which was the twilight zone for a lot of people back then. And so I've been aware of it, and Cliff Carnicom, another great contributor to the knowledge, also about Morgellons. But so I'm always aware of them, and I was just rejoicing. One of the reasons why I left Rome was because when I came here, there were no trails. I was like, Rome, we won't even talk about Rome. It's just, it would be heartbreaking to get up at 5 in the morning and see them already. You can see them at night. So the last couple of years, it has intensified here, and we've got these bizarre weather patterns. I'm not exaggerating when I tell you it's 7 months of rain.
Yeah.
And right now it's gray. Used to be a sunny, gorgeous Hawaii type of situation here, right? Beautiful white puffy clouds. They give us one of those days once every 2 months. And the rest of the time it's rain, rain through the night, rain through the day. It's distressing, but I don't know what to say unless the human race starts to get with it. I mean, when you've got the documentation and you can still say, oh, that's just a conspiracy theory. It's like if you put this documentation in a person's face, they will say, oh, that's ridiculous. That doesn't exist. This denial from humanity, I don't know what it's going to take. What's it going to take? What do you think it will take to turn?
The Great Awakening is what it's going to take. It's our only hope, and that is when people wake up on an individual basis. You can take a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. Same thing with people and information. You can present them with as much factual information as possible, but if they are so believing the mainstream narrative that chemtrails were just a conspiracy theory, they're never going to believe it. But now the tide has turned. So now they have to admit it. But of course, they're saying it's for all these benevolent reasons, blocking out the sun. Yeah. But don't we need the sun for all these solar panel arrays that they're putting up everywhere? So they contradict themselves quite a bit too with the reasons given for why they're doing what they're doing.
There are actually people saying it's a benevolent thing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I've got a geoengineering chapter in Beyond Esoteric. And in that, the section of illustrations, I have an article reprinted in the book. People can read it from over a decade ago, where Bill Gates was saying we need to dim the sun. It's just way too dangerous. And now these sun rays are coming in, and if we don't start spraying the skies, then the human race is doomed. Since when did that guy ever care one iota about the human race? It's quite the opposite. You said it earlier. It's an anti-human depopulation agenda. And I think
Oh yeah,
that's deep down what's going on with the chemtrails.
they openly, but they're getting zapped too. Maybe they have, their
Maybe they have
RH
the antidote. Yeah.
antidote, RH negative blood.
Well, when you understand what the biological agent is that they're spraying, and this is in that Public Law 105-85, November 18th, 1997, it says that these biological agent means any microorganism, including bacteria, viruses, fungus, protozoa, pathogen, or innocuous substances, or any naturally occurring bioengineered or synthesized compounds of any such microorganism, pathogen, or infectious substance, which
Wait,
can, capable of causing, death. It's in the law. It can cause death, disease, or other biological malfunctions in a human, an animal, a plant, or any other living organism. They covered themselves pretty good there. This is
they,
legal. They can kill you legally with these chemtrails and other nefarious ways.
so
So
let me ask you
this is how bad it's gotten, Patricia. I mean, you're right. If we don't wake up, they will kill us all off.
yeah, well, that's the plan. And in the last 2 weeks, 7 people I know have presented with stage 3 or stage 4 cancer overnight.
Ooh.
7 people.
Mm. And
And
let me guess, they got
most of
that
them,
thing.
no, most of them did not get this. This is my point bringing it up with you.
Oh,
Have the jabber. Let's see, out of the 7, 3 have not, 4 have, so not most of them. Okay. I had a dear friend who had the jabber. He was one healthy stud of a guy, young tennis player, just a Greek guy that I adored. Took the jabber, 2 weeks later, dead on a road.
Ooh, sorry to
of
hear.
like turbo cancer. Do you suppose that some of this is coming from the trails?
I
I
think
mean, we
mainly
know
came
the
from
jet.
that thing, but it could be. I mean, when I read you the list here of microorganism pathogens or infectious substances, which could be the graphene oxide, which could be the Morgellons, which Sophia Smallstorm has been finding in her rain samples raining down on us. I mean, I remember heavy chemtrail days when I lived way out on the coast in San Francisco. There were no highways west of me. And after a heavy chemtrail day, my car would be covered in these little fibers, these substances. And you can't say that it came from the pollution from cars or driving, because the Pacific Ocean, there's nothing to the west of us until you hit Japan. Okay, it's the largest body of water on the planet. It should be just fresh air coming in off the coast. But of course, they were spraying heavy chemtrails, and you'd see it, the residue on your car the next day. You have to go get a car wash.
I
You
was
certainly don't want to breathe them, or it also gets into the garden, the grass. You're walking around with bare feet. I think it can also stick to you that way. But boy, we'd be out playing volleyball on the beach and perfectly blue sky day like you were describing, and then they'd start spraying. There were days it was so bad you can even see it kind of raining down out of these chemtrails. I'd want to get out of there. I'd want to just leave. Thanks for ruining my day, right? And then I go back and watch the news that night and they say, oh, yeah, some light clouds came rolling in. Well, that's a blatant lie. I saw the whole thing and how they just laid these trails out and made this white, milky cloud cover. So we've been lied to extensively about the reason and the purpose of these clouds. They're not clouds, they're chemical layers. And they've been perfectly legal, not only in spraying us, but lying to us. And this was when Obama reversed the Smith-Mundt laws of the 1940s, which made truth in advertising, truth in the media. He flipped it around, inverted it, and called it the Smith-Mundt Modernization Act. So the media can legally lie to you. And that's what they do when they report these light clouds rolling in at the end of the day. Yeah, out of the tail of a plane.
also noticed, I always notice this. I don't have TV, but I pick up news from the tube, that every news station background has usually some kind of blue scene, or a, let's say, a city scene with blue sky over it, and these beams of light cutting across. Have you ever noticed this? They're always coming in. Notice, pay attention.
Ah, okay.
They come at an angle across the screen, and they keep coming across the screen like a design. And it's like they look like chemtrails. And I'm like, oh, this is talk about mental masturbation. Look at this. Mind control, right? It's every news station you ever watch. Fox News, they all do it. It's these white, it looks like they're doing some kind of graphic design, but they look exactly like chemtrails.
Hmm.
Of course, I am always looking for these kinds of things because I have a suspicious mind when it comes to media and government. What I wanted to ask you about what you were saying, I interrupted you, I think, and lost my track. But yeah. So it's really important for people to understand that when they're heavy spraying, they shouldn't be out. I mean, people are out jogging and
Hmm.
playing with their animals. It's like, get it right. This is a contamination event.
Yeah.
Get inside, do what you can to have air filtration in your home, and keep your animals inside when it's really heavy. Look,
Hmm.
there's no way that we can avoid this completely because it's ubiquitous. But certainly there are steps, like you said, I felt like I wanted to go inside. And inside you should go, because the less, obviously, the less encounter you have with this stuff, the better. It's trying time for sure. For sure.
Hmm.
So I wanted to ask you, do you suppose that all this tampering with the Earth's magnetosphere and the ionosphere, we think about the sun doing it to the planets? Because I am convinced that all of the planetary celestial beings are conscious. Do you suppose that the sun is reacting to what's going on our planet by these
Hmm.
maniacal systems? Because it's like, do you think that, is it possible, which I think it is, that the sun is like, oh, you don't want my light? I mean, I'm really talking about a
So
realistic
hit
level.
you with some sun flares.
Yeah, you don't want my light? Well, okay, here, check this out. It's, isn't it a possibility that the sun, on an emotional, if it has an emotional body, or on a physical level, is reacting to this barrier that's being placed?
Hmm.
It's an interesting idea. I don't think anybody else has brought it up. In other words, if you reject my love, let's say a mother with a child, and the child says, I don't want to talk to you. And the mother says, please, I made you a cake. If you reject my light, isn't it possible that somehow the sun would try to break through those barriers? Because I don't believe that it's a one-way street here. I think these celestial bodies are interacting and not just emitters and receivers. I'd love to know your opinion about that.
I never thought of it that way, but the ancient Greeks were the first to propose that the Earth was a living conscious entity, the Gaia hypothesis, that it too has a form of consciousness. So I guess extending that out to the sun would also make sense. And yeah, if we're rejecting it, maybe it knows that the animals and the plant life, well, they don't really have say in the matter. It's just the crazy humans doing this thing, and therefore it's going to interject itself even more positively on the planet with these solar flares.
Or
That's an interesting concept.
from a less, let's say, metaphysical position, isn't it possible that the dynamic, because of the way that energy flows and the blockage that's happening, that the sun is ramping up that energetic field because it senses that that more is needed, more energy is needed to break through? These are some thoughts I have while I lie in bed at night. I think it's very possible that more is going on the galactic level than we give credit for.
Well, that's for sure. And more UFO sightings than ever before, and it's even making its way into the mainstream media. I don't think they can avoid it much anymore because there's so many videos and so many eyewitnesses. And of course, with social media, people are posting it online and for everybody to see that it, I'm not even sure I've met anyone that doesn't believe that there have been visitations from extraterrestrial beings on this planet.
You think
You
back
really
to
have to search far to find even a single skeptic to say, oh, no, never before. We're just totally alone out here. I mean, come on, really?
if you think back to the days of uh, Bill Clinton with the Martian rock, they just happened to find
Right.
the snow, and there could be bacteria. It was August 31st, I think the White House let out this short press release
They
about the
found
Martian
it in Antarctica.
in
I have a
Antarctica.
picture of it in my
They
presentation.
found this rock, and it just happened to be from Mars, and it just happened to have something that looked like bacteria. And they test marketed to see the reaction, and not too many people reacted to that. I'm
No.
like, okay, this is a little massage step. So we've
Yeah.
planted the seed that there could be prehistoric biological DNA in a rock from Mars that we happen to find in the snow.
Hmm.
From here, it's smooth sailing because nobody's concerned about that. And we've got, I mean, NASA daily putting out information. Ooh, of course, one of the interesting things happening right now is oumuamua. You know about oumuamua?
Oh yeah,
The
that
cigar shaped
asteroid that went flying by a couple of years ago.
asteroid. So what's happening if you're not up to date? It's a thrill to tell you something that you're not up to date on.
All right.
Oumuamua, it's called oumuamua,
Yeah.
first came in 2017, and they thought it might be an asteroid, but it had strange properties. It was traveling strangely.
Yeah.
It responded to, um, it slowed up and speeded up, and it didn't have the properties of an asteroid. But before they could really examine it too much, it was gone. Well, recently, it's back with two or three other oumuamuas. And
Oh.
now NASA and Michio Kaku and all kinds of Brian, what's his name, Cox, they're talking about it and they're saying, is Muamua some sort of intelligence? They're saying that it has properties of having guidance inside and responding energetically, taking apparently it speeds up and slows down in space. And they're really suggesting that it could be a craft. So it came in 2017, and like I said, they saw it. Apparently, they blacked it out on the James Webb Hub. What's it called? The James Hub
Webb
telescope.
telescope. Yeah.
Telescope. They
Yeah.
blacked it out because it was like, what are we looking at? Then it supposedly went out. It's interstellar, so it came in and went out, and now just recently, that was 2017. It's back with 2 or 3 additional oumuamuas. They're big, and they're careening through very close to us.
Wow.
Very,
Well,
yeah,
I hope we get another sighting because, yeah, then after it went by, people were saying, boy, that behaved more like a spaceship than an asteroid.
yeah. But now the
Eh,
scientists, my point being, now NASA and Michio Kaku and all these kahunas are suggesting that this could be craft of interstellar origins. So I think that disclosure is very imminent. In fact, we talk about disclosure being imminent. It's underway.
It's
And
underway.
NASA is openly talking about all kinds of interstellar activity. And I think, but the question that remains in my mind is, oh my God, what happens when we get a landing and we can't figure out if these are actors from Hollywood with their masks? This is US craft or, earthly craft.
There's
It's just,
also the possibility of Planet X, the Nibiru,
yeah,
which has been detected. Even 60 Minutes did a piece on it that they know it's out there, but they just haven't seen it yet. I think they have seen it. They just don't want to talk about it because when it comes into our inner Earth or the inner solar system, if it even passes by Earth, that could trigger the pole shift.
definitely.
And so they find that the pole shifts happen on a pretty regular basis. It could correspond with this very oblong orbit of planet X. And of course, such a huge gravity anomaly coming into our near Earth solar system would certainly wreak havoc on our continents and moving the magnetic pole around. So that's the other thing that could be happening with the sun. And of course, the sun gravity is pulling it in. It's supposed to be bigger than Jupiter. It's a huge planet, our 12th planet. I mean, Sitchin wrote a whole book on it that it's out there.
Yeah,
Goes by
it's
many
a
different
lot.
names, but same thing.
But this is happening right now, this Oumuamua thing. And I think it was
When's the
Michio
next
Kaku.
one supposed to come around, you know?
I think it's under observation now.
Okay.
I'm uninformed as of today, but a few days ago, Michio Kaku was saying, uh, Oumuamua is back, and it's back with 3 other ships, 3 other formations,
Uh-huh.
and was saying that, is this it? He actually said, is this it? Because these, and it's interesting, it came in, checked us out, and went, guys, come with me.
It's
So
Earth.
now
Get out
there's
of
a
here.
there's a fleet of them, and they're in our solar system, apparently.
Wow.
And he said that um, they're behaving as if there is, what was the word he used? Navigational intelligence. That's what he said. They're behaving as if there were navigational intelligence inside. So they
That's really
look like,
fascinating.
asteroid rocks, but a lot of the science community is pointing to them as being craft. I think this is a huge thing. So I'm glad to be able to present it to you because you know about everything. But
Well, I don't know about everything. Thanks for sharing it. Certainly
no.
like to learn new
So yeah,
stuff.
check it. It was named Oumuamua by the University of Hawaii when it was
Yep.
dis- and as I said, they just apparently they were studying it and then it poof, it disappeared and they were like, well, okay. It was an anomaly. And then all of a sudden it's back. And I think it's 3 or 4. So the headline that I read was Oumuamua is back with others like it. And they're tracking them. And I think it was Michio Kaku, maybe Brian Fox, who said they saw something that made them turn the telescope off.
Hmm.
So I think we're in for some very startling news here. But my question, and I've had this conversation with Michael Sala, Dr. Michael Sala, is what if they hoax a benevolent arrival of ETs? In other words, we all know the extinction scenario where they come and shoot up the planet. What if they stage, for control reasons, which just happen to still be in place, a benevolent arrival where we've got a faux alien crew coming down and saying, we're here to help. We're going to be working with your governments and giving them guidance on how to come into the Galactic Federation of Planets. This could easily be staged by these goons.
Yeah, just as easily staged, and that's Project Bluebeam, and that's something that is scheduled to occur in 2025 as well. So it's just a lot of weird. Yeah, yeah. According to this CIA whistleblower, all the way back in 1989, he had that really raspy voice, and he's like, "I see the kids here in this playground. I just want to tell them what's going to happen." But he was laying out the agenda for how the globalists want to take over the world. He was actually a hitman. Guess he was having an end of life
Right.
judgment.
Was
Yeah.
he?
Yeah. And he said that Blue Beam would happen in 2025 and that this would be and this is what Werner von Braun told his assistant Carol Rosen, that this would be the last card that the globalists play to institute full world government. And you can kind of see how they're making their final moves now too. But I think Trump has disrupted a lot of those plans. But that could be a desperate move, Patricia. They're just going to say, "Hey, alien invasion. We got to put the planet under martial law," and however else they're going to try to manipulate us to believe whether they're good aliens or bad aliens. Now, I've heard that Project Bluebeam was supposed to be bad aliens, and they want to have a whole show of force. Captain Randy Kramer, he was coming out. He was saying, "I'm the public PR of the U.S. military to say that we need Project Bluebeam to show off all the weapons that we have been accumulating." And they don't really know how to roll them out to the general public, like the TR-3B, the triangular craft, the anti-gravity, the 0 point stuff they have that is many, many decades ahead. This is our Star Trek future that the human population has been deprived of because they're bottled up in all these black projects. So Randy Kramer says, "Well, we would like to do a blue beam fake alien invasion to roll out all these ships, and then we can say, hey, look, this is what we've been saving them for, to save the planet." And then they'll get off the hook from sequestering all this technology for so long.
Help but notice that Trump's Space Force has the Star Trek.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
that's part of the rollout too.
Yeah, and yeah. What time? I don't know. I think that it would be easier to control the population if it was a fake benevolent, and
Yeah,
they were, we're going to have to work with your governments because you got to get on board with the program
get on
and
board. Yeah.
get on board whether you like it or not, and if not, you're going to perish. And if you follow our instructions, we'll take you into the galaxy.
Yeah.
Interesting times to be considering all these things, isn't it, Brad?
It sure is.
Yeah. Well, at least we're still able to talk about them. One last question I got for you is, so do you think that Trump is, how do I say this without creating trouble? You think Trump is an opposing force to the New World Order?
Oh, I think he is, and it's quite clear because They tried to assassinate him. They try to sue him at every chance they can. They impeach him whenever they have even the slightest infraction. And he is more of a monkey wrench in their plans than anybody has ever been.
But they're
The
still
New
going
World
along.
Order, they've been unopposed really the whole time because they have gamed the system and gotten the politicians, the judges, all the important people in government on their side through blackmail. And this is coming back to Epstein Island again, that this was a honey trap to blackmail them.
Evidence. Who's being protected? We gotta be careful
Yeah.
when we talk, by the way.
Oh, yeah. Who's being protected? Well, the globalists, the global elite. They're the ones who tried to put in this technocratic world government. And now there's countries that are pulling out of the WHO, and the World Economic Forum is not what it used to be, and Carl Schwab stepped down. So there's signs that the globalist agenda is starting to crack.
Yeah,
But
I agree.
maybe they're waiting around for a Planet X or a oumuamua to come into our solar system, or the solar flare. We started out by saying that CERN has now been able to affect the solar flare. So maybe it's going to be a man-made catastrophe made to look like a natural catastrophe.
The CERN
And
is messing around with the beyond the subatomic, right?
yep,
And they've openly said that they're looking to open portals and to bring something. One, they made a statement once, which was we were hoping to bring something through.
yep.
It's like, well, here's an idea, guys. If you're going to bring something through, could you stop with the dark rituals so that what you bring
Yeah.
through?
Let's start there, huh?
That, well, okay, Brett, thank you. I'd love you to. We've had some heavy conversation here, so do you have an optimistic or, let's say, auspicious comment to leave the people that are listening with?
Well, let's just stay optimistic. Yeah, let's remember that the Great Awakening is really all of us starting to grok this material. You
Yes,
know it when you believe it at your core. And everything that we've been talking about today, people can research and find out on their own if they don't know it already. Just try to ease it in with those that are still on the fence. You don't have to jam anything down their throat. Uh, Take that horse to water, but don't force it to drink. And then people are going to wake up on their own timeline. And that's really what's going to affect the shift entirely, is when people understand it at their own core. And it's really an interpersonal journey that we're all going through. So I just hope it's sooner than later, because it's all hands on deck at this point. We really do need everybody to be a part of this great awakening.
it's so true. And when you look at the
Yeah, that
as dark
thing.
as it is and as devastating as it's been, it has been a great awakener
Hmm.
because so many people are now. Maybe I shouldn't have done that. People that were diehards, maybe that wasn't a good idea. Watching people dropping dead around them, or invalids, whatever. And it's interesting how such a negative, dark thing can in have that pendulum swing to being a positive force for change, from
Yep,
evil to a great awakener. It's interesting how the universe works, isn't it?
sure
All right.
is.
I'm going to just ask Brad, where do you want people to go to reach you and to get your books?
Sure,
I'll
yeah.
post it in writing as well.
Yeah, to read my books or other authors published at cccpublishing.com. That's where you can get a signed copy from me, either there or to come to one of the conferences I'm speaking at. And next month I'll be at the 5D event in Sedona. Then driving up to Chaco Canyon, New Mexico for a conference in the ruins. That sounds like it's going to be pretty cool. Then in
Yeah.
July, I'll be flying to Florida for the Full Disclosure Now conference in the middle of the month. Go to bradolsen.com, just the way my name is spelled. to find my conference schedule and come on out. I'd love to meet you. I talk about these subjects we spoke of here and a lot more. But yeah, find out much more of that information in my books. As you said at the beginning of the show, Beyond Esoteric has just come out in a second edition. More information in the geoengineering chapter as well. And the whole thing got a big upgrade and facelift with the new chapter on this thing. So,
These are encyclopedic books that you want to have hardcover, or I mean, physical books in your library tucked away. So if Fahrenheit 451 comes, you have them buried in your garden.
absolutely.
Brad, it's always a real, I'm out here on this island. I don't have a whole bunch of people to talk to. They're not in it, yeah, right. I'm considered a freak here.
Yeah.
So when I get to speak to people like you, I just know the world is okay. We're at this.
Well, that's great.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. This is my first live on YouTube. I hope everything went well. Well, at least it's my first live with a guest. And keep in touch. Please go to my website, patriciacori.com. And, the subscribe button. I mean, there's nothing to this. Bingo, you touch a little button, subscribe. It helps me have a reason to keep bringing you this information and get those bots going or whatever it is. You know me with technology. So I'll see you soon, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to this wonderful conversation with Brad. Take care, everyone. Thanks, Brad. You're a star.
You bet. Thank you, Patricia.
Thank you. Bye-bye.